Yes, hello guys, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about some definitions in the RSTP. So we're going to be looking at some of these definitions to help you guys answer or to help you guys prepare for the exam. So this is just part of my studies here so that I can give you guys some tips. Then before we move into the real preparation with the exam. Uh, as you guys know, I'm hosting a course, so most of you guys who watch this channel already know what I'm saying. So, anyways, today, as you can see from the heading, I plan to give you guys some definition which I took from the RSTP because what I've decided to do now is I'll be picking some parts to try to just talk about it with you people till when the time to do the course and write the exam approaches, which is in April. I think you guys are writing the exam 28th of April, 28, 29. And then if there's something, as FIFA said, if there's more of how do I say if there are still more people, then there will be something more in May. But anyway, let's dive straight into it. As I said, if you want to pass the exam without guessing, you have to look for a structural approach to prepare. Or whether you're preparing alone or you want a group of people or you need my help, but it has to be a structural approach because this exam for most of you people who don't know, I try to give you a lot of tips here because what I'll say is most of the time people who write the exam, there's always less percentage of people passing. So if let's take for example, if 10,000 people register, you probably see 3,000 people pass, so you probably see less and more. So it's quite tricky, and now it's even more difficult because you it's more difficult because now the exam is just written once. As I said in my previous video, the time I wrote the exam, we had two times. We could write in if we could write in May. If you didn't pass in May, you could try again in November. But now for you guys who are writing, you guys just write just once, and then you have to wait again another year. And the other year is not also guaranteed. And in this exam, um, there's one example I always take because life like that is so surprising. I was writing with my there's a friend of mine that when I was preparing for the exam, when I had to pay to read for someone to teach me, also a mentor. But within that time, he said, this exam is just easy. We're just going to write this exam and pass. But do you know what? Do you know what? The last time I rang him, he said he's not writing the exam again. He had discouraged. He's tired of writing numerous times. But hadn't been he tried to put in the sacrifice to write the exam, he wouldn't have been discouraged. So that's just the idea that when you have a chance to do something, take it because you don't know the next time is not a guarantee that you may pass. So that's how this thing is. So which right, let's say, are you allowed to use Control F to search for the exam materials? Yes, you are allowed to use Control F to search for the exam materials in the exam. But the thing is, before I continue, the thing is you have to master how to use those things. For example, you're talking about Control F. If you type Control F and you're putting, let me say you put transfer, there are many words that transfer. If you put RSTP, there are many words that come like RSTP. So you have to learn how to use, and when you use the Control F, you type, let me say if you type transfer market, you cannot type transfer market, it's not going to come. You type just one word comes. So you have to learn how to use the book. That's also something I'll be also trying to give you guys in my course. We'll be doing this thing that we try to use the book because the thing that also I notice is when you are writing the exam, if you have not learned how to use a book, you arrive inside the exam, you cannot use it. You panic because if you take 60 questions, within those 16 questions, you have 3 minute a question. I mean, sorry, if you have 20 questions and you have for 60 minutes, which means if you divide it, which means one question is 3 minutes. And I always say some questions I even learned that before you read that question and understand it, it's even more than 3 minutes. So during the exam, there's a little bit of pressure. It's never going to be. So you have to you have to adapt to that. So because when you arrive for the exam, you can answer the first question, then the next question is quite very lengthy. Before you read and understand, because the questions are not just easy as FIFA sets. FIFA try to make it a little bit tricky. So you have to be able to understand how to interpret the question. If not, you're going to spend maybe 4 minutes on the question, so which is not really helpful. And when you start spending more time on the question, then your anxiety start to come. You start to develop some panic that, oh my God, I haven't done a lot. I'm going to fail. Then you start maybe just doing guesswork, which this comes as a result of not preparing. So that's why I say the main thing is, if you have to learn how to prepare using the book, and then prepare, you read a lot of the materials. When you read a lot of the materials and you read the book, then this is how you answer the exam by uh, when you go into the exam, you start answering the questions, the one that you know you answer easily. Then now, after some time, you start referring now to the book. This is the best way to answer. But this only happens when you have read and you know how to use the book. Because let's take, for example, if a question comes under, let me say, bridge transfer. If you don't know how to use the book, how do you find bridge transfer? Yeah. But when I was writing, I used to know that, okay, bridge transfer, where does it fall under RSTP? I'll run and go and look at the table of content. I'll run and go and look at the table of content where is bridge transfer as quick as possible. So I used to try to, when I was writing, I used to try to know all the table of contents also. Yeah. I used to know you don't need to cram all, but you need to know where is it. You need to also know the structure from FIFA statutes to where after which topic comes. Is it FIFA ethic code? Is it disciplinary code? And after disciplinary code, what does it come? Is it RSTP? After RSTP, what does it? What comes again? Is it FIFA clearinghouse? After FIFA clearinghouse, what comes again? So is FIFA agent regulation. After agent regulation, what comes? So I'm just saying topics off my head, but I'm saying that you have to know already how those topics are structured in the material. Then you know also, if you're using, let's say, because you're allowed to use, some people use the 2026 version of the material of the book because it's an open book exam. Some people will use the 2025 version. But any version you're using, you have to make sure you try to master how to use that version. But anyway, we're going to go also a little bit deep into details when I'm doing the course, so that we are going to treat the course in a way that when you are using the book, or you are using the book, you should be able to find the answer with as quick as possible. How to interpret the question, so that, let's take for example, if they're asking you about a minor transfer or minor, how to find your answers using them, how to find your answer as quick as possible. So these are a little bit of things we will be touching on to help you guys try to pass the exam. And there's one thing, a lot of candidates always feel the exam is quite easy because it's multiple choice, but when they go inside the exam hall, it's totally different thing. And some of you guys who have written it a few times already know what I'm saying. But anyways, I looked at some few definitions uh, and then I just wanted to touch on them so that we can just to run through it as quick as possible. Anyway, so but for someone who have been into football, probably you are going to have a little bit of idea. So there are some definitions in the RSTP that you just need to have a little bit of glance at it, and then you try to look at it one or two times, and then you're off. For example, like when we talk like former club, those definitions they might come, but those are rare to come. But those are things that still you want to know, because they'll be using those terminology in the exam, so they can say a a from there was a transfer that happened from a player's former club. So they'll be using all this terminology that you need to know. So that's why it's good to know this little bit of tips, so that it helps you interpret the question easily. So former club, what's a former club? Former club, of course, is where it's your past club. This is the club you're leaving to go to a new club. So if you have been transferred, the other club is a former club, former association. So let's take, for example, I live in Finland. if I was to transfer, if I transfer a player to, let's say, UK, if I transfer a player to UK and he's under the British Association, the Finnish Football Association is his former association. So, just an example, so that you clear. New club, I think most of you guys know, is the club that you have just been transferred to. Same as new association is your new association that you are affiliated to right away. Official matches, these are just, and then the next thing I'll be looking at official matches. Official matches, these are matches played like national league, national cups, and international competitions. Friendlies are not official matches. Those are not official matches. Yeah. Organized football. This is organized football. This is like football under FIFA. I mean, is under FIFA rules and regulation. Confederations like UEFA, CAF, CONMEBOL, member association. So that is organized football. That's organized football. And then there's also this term protected period. Protected period, I think I spoke about this in one of my videos. Protected period is a period for a player a play, when before the player if the player if the contract of a player is signed before 28 years, I mean between 28 years. See, that's 3 years. Let's take, for example, let me give it again. So a protected period is a period where one, a player signs a contract that and he is protected, that you cannot breach a contract then there at that moment. If not, you have huge repercussion. So let's take, for example, I'll give an example of a player like Bruno Fernandes. When he signed his contract extension with Manchester United, he was 29 when he signed that contract extension, which means his protected period, because let me see, he had already passed 28 years. So when you pass 28, you have 2 years of protected period. If you're still getting to 28, you have 3 years. So in the case of Bruno Fernandes, when he signed that contract, he was 29 years. So his protected period was just 2 years. So in those 2 years, Bruno Fernandes couldn't break that transfer. I mean, he couldn't breach his contract with Manchester United. If he breached it, then he would have paid a lot of money. So this period is a period that if you breach uh, any contract, whether you or the club, there's going to be more repercussion than let's take, for example, if you're away from the protection period. So I hope you understand. This actually is a question that always comes, so they can try to put something like a protection period that you should find, that they can just give you definitions and then you should pick what is protection period. So you have to know that with this definition I just gave you. And remember, it's before 28 years, 3 years, after 28, 2 years. So that's how protection period goes. And okay, registration period. Another thing, registration period. This is a period in the transfer window that you register players. I think all of you will have an idea about this one. A season. Okay, what is a season? A season is a fixed period where official matches are played. And who is a minor? A minor is any player under 18 years. And then the next thing is training compensation. What is training compensation? Training compensation is paid. This is paid to clubs who train players between the age of 12 to 21. Normally, this is covered in Annex 4 of your FIFA study material. If you're reading the material, you know training compensation is covered in Annex 4. So next question. Let's see, just to jump into your question again. Are you allowed to use Control F? Yes. Will the results come out immediately? No, the result this time wouldn't come out immediately. The result this time will come out in, I think, June. It will come out in June this time. So you have a little bit of lengthy period for the exam this time. Not immediately. Before, when we wrote the exam, the result will come out in 7 days. So if you wrote this on a Wednesday, because when I wrote on a Wednesday, the next Wednesday the exam came out. So, but now it shows that because FIFA also there's a little bit of challenge. They don't know if they are just going to write just on the 28 and 29. because which is the fixed date. But FIFA is anticipating that if there are so many candidates still to, then they might take other days, 6 or 7 of May. So they might take other days. So depending on how many people are involved, that's what FIFA is thinking. But anyways, no matter what, as just to answer your question, the result will come out in June. So there's, let's say, one more. No, if you write in April, May, if you write in April, so you have like May, and then in June it comes out in June. 1 month, some few weeks. So that will be enough time for you to write something. And the sad thing about it is that those who don't make it will have to wait till next May again, or whatsoever time they write again when they examine. Yeah. So that's just how challenging it is. So my advice would be for anybody trying to write this exam, try your best to try your best, give it all for this 1 month or whatsoever, and try to write, because there's huge advantage when you have a license. And in this, I was speaking in a conference, let me say, trying to advise some agents, and just an online meeting with other people. And one thing I noticed is that a lot of people don't have the license, even big people. But the thing is, when you don't have the license, you're never going to be seen inside where decisions are made. Let's take, for example, sometimes I travel and I enter, not sometimes, when I travel, I enter to football clubs and I speak to CEO, sporting director. Do you know why I do all this thing? Because I know I have the license and I can go into those places. So when there's a deal happening, if they take my transfer market, if they take my transfer market, I mean my transfer number, my FIFA agent license number, you type it, you can find me out, you find my name, find everything. But for someone who doesn't have the license, he will not, even if he have someone to negotiate a deal with the club, and which it will be challenging, because most these days sporting directors, what they do is when you propose a player to them, they go and type that player's name and see the agent representing that player. Then they tell you that, okay, sorry, we have found the agent. They'll contact the agent. So before, most people used to try to do deals that, okay, they will just try to connect players to clubs. But these days, sporting directors now are quite also very smart, that when you propose a players to them, especially in Europe, I'm talking, they just try to type that player's name, see his transfer details, see his name, and see the agent representing him. Then they contact the agent. So this is the situation now. So most of the time, I'll advise you guys, try to do your best to pass the exam, because when you have the license, you can reach out to anyone. And when you reach out to anyone, like for example, when I want to write to sporting directors or I want to talk to them, if I'm sending a message, I always leave my FIFA agent license number. That already differentiate me from any other agent, because I'm already telling them in the message that I am an official agent, I'm a professional agent. So when they take it, they just need to type my number and say all my details, what is happening. And most of the time they reply, they try to start writing back, because they see, okay, this is someone doing the job. There's no shady business around here. So that's why I advise everyone, try to work hard to get that license, because it's going to open a lot of doors for you. Okay, the next question, someone asks, please, I have paid for the exam and made my payment. What else is remaining, because I saw a message about review? You paid for the exam for about review. Probably then they are to review to see review. Have you done the? I hope you're still online. Have you done the checkup? Because normally when you pay, they have to check your records. The records that is the criminal records and all those kind of stuffs, because they check everything before accepting you to represent, so for everything to go through. But if you have paid and then they say review, you just need to wait to hear what they'll say. Normally, when you have arrived at that stage, it's quite fine. But they always try to check everything, because when FIFA has this thing, when you're registering, the first thing they're always looking for is if someone has if someone has been bankrupt, if you have gone under bankruptcy, you are not going to be FIFA agent. So all these things, they try to do some background checks on you. And yes, all this background check, like criminal record, all those kind of things, they try to go through everything and check so that they see you're clean, because they feel you are representing a human being. So you need to be clean before representing another person. Okay, because I saw 14 or 21 days review. It might not be that 21, it might not be that, but let's see. It might not be that, but yes, they try to review um to see if they can find something. That's, I will just tell you, that's the thing they do. They try to review, see all your profile. When everything is okay, they'll let you know. That's just the idea. But if you have paid and you have arrived at that level without them asking anything, just wait. They'll get back to you. That's the idea. And from there, when they give you the go ahead, then you just go and start preparing, waiting for the day to ride. I made the payment in 6th of February. 6th of February. Okay, yeah, but 6th of February is still early. So let's wait and say. I thought you almost said 6 January. So just hold on, they get back to you. Because you said it's showing review. So just have to be patient. Let's see how it goes. And normally with the FIFA with the registration, anything that they need, they're going to let you know. That's one nice thing. Everything they need, they'll always try to give you an idea that, okay, this we didn't do, you didn't go through because of this. But normally, when you have paid and you just wait for the review, and when everything comes on, then you move on, like how everyone it happens to every other person. Okay, okay. So let's go back to what I was saying. So I was talking about training compensation. That training compensation, this is compensation paid to academies or football clubs who train young players. So FIFA has this rule that normally the club who form the young players between the age of 12 to 21, each time that player moves on, if that player transfer to another club, that club that club gets a training compensation, or a compensation for their job of training that player when the player was young. But it's only at the age of 12 to 21. And this happens when you sign your first professional contract and a professional transfer internationally before the end of your 23rd birthday. Okay. And then academy, I think most of you guys know the academy, an organization focused on developing players. This include football schools, training centers, camps, but it's also regulated. So these are just few things that they'll be using, few names that they'll be using also in the FIFA agent exam, that you just need to get out. You just need to get an idea. There's always a question that used to always come that they say, well, it might not come, but they always say this. There's this 17. Let's take for example, John is a 17 years academy player, moves to Brazil for an academic scholarship, and signs a professional contract with the team there, start to play there. And then they start asking, is John eligible to move to Brazil and sign a professional contract and earn money because he's living a comfortable life? B, they give all this scenario. But now, if you have been reading also the rules and regulations, you understand that at 17, John doesn't have to move to Brazil to sign this because he's underage. So you started. So that's what I'm saying, that the exam also is quite very tricky. That you have to know that. Let's take for example, if you're from Africa, you move to you cannot move to Europe when you're not 18. I mean, before you have to turn 18 before moving to Europe. But in Europe, yeah, let's take for example, I'm representing. There's a young player I'm representing that he's 14, turning 15, very top talented player. When he turns 16, the club that he's playing now will try to offer him a professional contract. But because in Europe, they allow it that when you're 16, you can sign a professional contract. Uh, yeah. But for people coming from Africa, I mean, people living from other continents, you have to come to Europe and play, you have to turn 18 before you come. You also see the example of this thing happens when Real Madrid always sign the player, like for example Vinicius Junior and this Rodrigo. They loan them back up to Brazil. They loan them back to Brazil. The reason they loan them back to Brazil is because they are waiting for them to turn 18. Because according to FIFA rules and regulations, they cannot come. They cannot come to Europe without, before 18. So Real Madrid is trying to also they also try to stay within the rules. So these are just little things you need to know, that when they'll set these kind of things in the exam, they give an example like 17 years person left Africa and signed a professional contract. In your head, if you're someone who have already been reading the rules and regulations, you know that okay, there's no you cannot be signing a professional contract that you're 17. You have to be 18 years before you sign the professional contract. So these are the a little bit of tricks that will be given, that you will have to be smart to figure it out. So, and then let's look at the next one, transfer matching system. So this is a FIFA web-based system for international transfer. So let's take, for example, when any transfer happens, because now everything is online. When every transfer, it goes to the transfer matching system. So let's say if I don't have to do a transfer for a player, it goes through the transfer system, so that there's no fraud. FIFA makes this so that there's no fraud. It improves transparency, excuse me, and it simplifies everything, so that everyone can check that this player belongs to this place, to this team. So that's the use of transfer matching system. And then a third party. This also, I think most people are always confused with this. So who is a third party? So a third party, anyone who is not the player, the two transferring clubs, and any previous club, then you're a third party. So let me break it into local. So let's take, for example, if I'm transferring a player to a club, if I'm not involved, I'm a third party. So I go again, is anyone who is not the player, the two transferring clubs, the two clubs that the deal is happening with, or any previous club, then that's a third party. And this brings me to, I'll just give a little bit of story on the third party situation. The third party deal, or the third party started involved 2006, 2007. There's this player, Carlos Tevez and Mascherano. They moved to West Ham United. They moved to West Ham United based on third parties. So the deal was quite tough, because West Ham did the deal. I mean, brought them to Premier League, but it was challenging for West Ham to move them, because they were attached to a company in Brazil. I mean, a South American company, a finance company. So this is where the issue of third party got heated, because the club had, let's say West Ham had signed Mascherano and Tevez, but they couldn't have control to influence him. So this is where FIFA started bringing this issue of, okay, we have to regulate this third party. Because normally when you're a club, you have a player, you should have all your says. You say, okay, I should be able to sell this player to this club and recoup some of the transfer money. I should be able to sell this player to this club and recoup some of the transfer money. But for the situation of West Ham, they had Carlos Tevez, Mascherano, Tevez. They couldn't sell him. Each time something had to happen, they had to consult a third party. So it's almost like you have a player, but if something had to happen to the player, there's another person involved. So this is where FIFA decided to ban the issue of third party and say, okay, no, this is not going to exist anymore. So we're going to find a way to stop this third party, so that if any player is contracted to a club, that club is in charge of selling the player or doing whatever with the player. There's no person coming from outside, like a third party or a finance company. This used to happen a lot in South America, even Africa and all those other countries, the third parties. So for example, when someone helps you to come to Europe, he puts due to finances that he has, due to his finances that he has sponsored you. So he tells you to sign a contract with him. You become now attached to him. When you go to a club, then they have also a saying. So all these things don't happen again because FIFA has stopped third party issues. Okay, the next one is, let's go down. 11 aside football. Okay, this is standard football played under official laws of the game. Yes. So I think that most of you guys know futsal, small-sided version governed by the FIFA futsal law. So what is registration? Okay, this is another one. I think most people registration. This is an official written record of a player at an association. It includes registration. So this is, let's take for example, when you're registering at an association, it includes start date, your full name, your date of birth, your nationality, if you are amateur or professional, so your status, the club name who's registering you, and then the FIFA ID. So these are all things that has to include registration. So when you're registering for a club, these are the things that are involved. Okay, then the next is FIFA ID. So what's it? FIFA ID is a unique worldwide identifier assigned to a player. So if most of you guys who have been playing leagues, okay, most people who play football who play leagues, there's something called FIFA ID for that the association. Let me say, because I played football, so I also have the FIFA ID that I could always check from the Finnish association. I could always check my details. So most of you people who played also, so that's it. So it's something that identifies you, a unique worldwide identifier assigned to a player, a club, association, or an agent. Now that I'm an agent, I have also my FIFA ID. So most of you guys, if some those who know me on social media, if you always see some of my socials handles, I always have my ID there, my FIFA ID that someone can type and try to check me. The reason these IDs are given out so that they should be less fraud, so that, and also it's also like an agent. Now FIFA has made it to a way that when you're an agent, you can quickly be identified. They always say the first thing, like for me, the first thing if I'm talking to someone and the person tells me it's an agent, I will say identify yourself. What's your agent number, please? The first thing the person tells me is my agent number is this. It takes few seconds. I will just open the FIFA website while I'm communicating with him. I'm typing, and I'll see all his details. I'll see all his details. If he's not an agent, then I know already that I will say no, he's not an agent. So that's how it works these days because everything is electric. Everything is online and it's quite easy to find. So international transfer. What is international transfer? This is a movement of a player registering from one association to another. So if I'm registering from the Finnish association from the British association, let me say if I transfer from there, that's an international transfer. So the national transfer, let's take for example, national transfer is just like someone leaving Real Madrid to Barcelona. That's a national transfer. It's all in Spain. Or someone leaving Manchester United to Liverpool or Manchester City or whatsoever. But those are national transfer because it's in the same country. Yeah, but international is in different countries and it involves two different associations. So these big things, these little things, they sound easy, but you need to get grip of these things so that it helps you. Because this term, as I said, this terminology, they'll be using a lot of these words. They'll be referring to national transfer. They'll be referring to international transfer. They'll be using all these words. So it's good you pick all these little tips so that you know what is what, so that it can help you. And the next thing we'll look at electronic domestic transfer system. Okay, of course, this is the system that when you're doing a national transfer, it happens. So everything goes through the system, that system. So what do we talk of? What is bridge transfer? There's this topic, bridge transfer. It's also a very huge something thing that happens in the world. Bridge transfer. So bridge transfer, first of all, is it's almost like people clubs used to use this a lot to bypass the system. So that's why FIFA call it bridge. So it's when a transfer happened within 16 weeks. 16 weeks is 4 months. So let's take, for example, what clubs used to do is they'll, at the beginning of the transfer window, they'll take a player, they'll take a player, they'll sell a player to, let me say, a player leaves Real Madrid and go to Levante. Then from within the first, let me say the transfer opens in August, the player leaves Real Madrid and go to Levante. Then in September, the player leaves Levante to Barcelona. So that is a breach of transfer because it's a transfer. That transfer, the player twice bypass the system, not paying training compensation to the former clubs. So FIFA, this is what FIFA call breach of transfer. So FIFA banned this. And when you do this at FIFA, actually you get a lot of fine. You get a lot of fine. So most clubs do this a lot of the time to avoid paying huge training compensation. So they try to always do. So when FIFA actually finds out that there's something like a breach of transfer, the club doing the two parties involved are in big problem. So this happen with a lot of players, but most of the time, you the player, you're not that because you're not always guilty. FIFA don't really let's say find you, but the two clubs involved, FIFA always try to give a fine, and if you're not careful, you might be you might get a registration ban or I mean a transfer ban. So you have to most clubs always have to be careful for this, but most of the time the players are always like okay, they are not banned for this situation. So that's what we call bishop transfer. So that's also one of the questions we usually also come because they always ask what is bishop transfer. So if you see that in the exam, you originally bishop transfer is this is what happens between transfer happen within 16 weeks. Within 16 weeks. So in essence, a player moving from club A to B and from B to C within 16 weeks. That's a breach of transfer. Yeah. Because it's a multiple choice question, of course, some people are going to have it. These are one of the things that always come. Like training compensation, breach of transfer. Those questions always frequent. If Mr. A, if John is not having it, Paul will have it, or Mary will have it, all those things. So because you know the way the exam comes is there are multiple questions that you can have different questions. This one have different questions. This one have different questions. But the idea is that most people always have breach of transfer or training compensation and all those things. That's why when writing the exam, when we're teaching, we always say there are topics. Of course, you have to read the book, but the RSTP, 30% of the exam comes from it. So the RSTP is a big thing that you have to know a lot, and it's the most bulky part of the exam. The RSTP is from page 150 to page 250, something like that. If I'm not mistaken. So the RSTP you have to know, and also when you see also the RSTP, most of the things in the RSTP are things that involve you as an agent because it involves transfer, it involves you, the club, the agent. So most of these things, in essence, you have those are the things you'll be using while applying, while doing your trade. When you pass the exam, most of the things you learn in the RSTP, you apply it on your job. So let's take, for example, you are trying to represent a player. You're trying to represent a player and you sit with the sporting director because the sporting director also, they will try to do something best for the club. And the sporting director is speaking to you about the negotiations. So your ideas about on RSTP and everything, you're going to apply it there. So you have to know how bonuses work. Bonuses work. You have to know how uh, to get the best out of your player. I mean, to get the best for your player because each time you cannot go into a transfer. You cannot go into how do I say, you cannot always go into a transfer, speaking, trying to sell your player to a football club and you don't know how to negotiate bonuses. You don't know anything about that, so it's going to be challenging. At the end of the day, the player is going to leave you and go to another agent. So that's why FIFA makes the exam tough, but it's going to also help you in the future. So that's the idea. Okay, we have really been going long, so let's try to round it up. So hope tomorrow same time 9:30, 9:30, or if not tomorrow, Wednesday 9:30, I'll be here so that we can continue. But let's see, let's try to round up. So and try to move faster. Purely amateur club. Okay, an amateur club is a club that only registers amateur players, no professionals, and don't pay salaries. They are not entitled to play salary. Of course, the amateur club they can pay some few money to different individuals, but they are not entitled to pay salary. That's what they call amateur clubs. Okay. Training. What is training rewards? Training rewards includes things like training compensation, solidarity mechanism. Okay, but anyways, these are just the advice, some few tips I got, definitions I got from the transfer from RSTP. At least tomorrow we're going to continue more, and then we're going to give more ideas on what to do on how to answer the questions. So at least I hope today you got some knowledge on how to tackle the exam. And then on my course, which is coming on, if you have not registered, try to register for the course. I will start on the 7th of July. I mean, on the 7th of April. Then we'll finish on the 21st of April. Then you will write, then those writing the exam will write the exam on the 28th and 29th. So what I'll be giving a 1 week gap so that you people can now do your own revision. So, but what we'll be doing in the course is I'll structure in a way that we will tackle most of the things. We use the book also, and then when the past questions that we'll be talking about, I'll try to teach you also, and also make you find how to use the book, because you need to use the book on exam day. So I'll so we'll be doing something like how teaching you how to use the book, then you use it you will try to use it as quick as possible, because that also be very important, because when you sit for the exam you have just an hour, and within that hour you have to answer those 20 questions quickly. For those people who are always slow, they end up not answering all the questions. So, which already indicates that you will fail, because we all know the pass rate of the exam is 75%, 75% out of 20. So, which means you have to pass 15 out of 20. Anyways, so tomorrow is another day. I will leave you for here, and then we speak tomorrow. So I'm already getting a little bit tired for speaking. But I hope you people got some information. Yeah, we'll continue tomorrow. I didn't answer a question here. Let's see. What's the question? Okay, because I saw 14. Okay, that's a past question. That's I did already. Okay, take care to everyone and talk to you tomorrow. Hopefully, I'm here tomorrow, if not on Wednesday. But if I'm here tomorrow, I will try to leave. I already try to put the thumbnail so that people can see if I'm coming tomorrow. Okay, take care. It's midnight this way. It's past 10 already in Finland here. So bye for now and talk to you. Take care. Bye. Cheers.